Ever walk away from an interaction with someone feeling like your very life force? Your positive energy has just been completely sucked dry. We all know them, don't we? The constant complainers, the drama magnets, the relentless critics who just seem to thrive on negativity. You've probably tried everything, being excessively nice, attempting to reason with them. Maybe you've even resorted to just ignoring them, hoping they'd get the hint. But somehow, they still manage to get under your skin. Right, what if I told you there's a proven, ancient way to deal with these difficult people without losing your ever-loving mind or compromising your core values? Forget the impossible task of trying to change them. Today, we're unlocking an ancient Stoic toolkit, a powerful, practical framework designed to help you protect your inner peace, establish ironclad boundaries, and navigate even the most toxic relationships with an almost unshakable calm and profound strength. This, my friends, is your essential guide through emotional self-defense. Have you ever felt the distinct, sinking feeling when you're around someone who just consistently drains your energy? Let's be honest, some people are just plain difficult. They might be perpetually negative, relentlessly critical, or perhaps their behavior even borders on the immoral or manipulative. It could be that challenging work colleague, a particularly trying family member, or really, just about anyone you find yourself consistently not wanting to be around. The pressing question then becomes, how do you effectively deal with these people without completely losing your mind in the process? How do you diligently protect your precious peace of mind and stay true to your own values at the very same time? This is where the timeless wisdom of Stoicism offers an incredibly powerful and practical framework for navigating these often treacherous relational waters. Because let's face it, a fundamental truth we all must accept is that you can't fundamentally change other people. But you absolutely can change how you react and respond to them. You can set firm boundaries, you can choose your battles wisely, and that's exactly what we're diving deep into today. How to deal with difficult and genuinely toxic people while strategically leaving every constructive option on the table. You might even have someone specific coming to mind right now, don't you? Someone who you've perhaps never quite been able to get along with. Someone who almost invariably causes headaches or emotional turmoil for you. But until this point, maybe you haven't really done anything concrete about it, hoping it would just resolve itself. The problem with that approach, however, is that ignoring these persistent signs of a toxic dynamic is like letting a small, manageable leak in your house slowly turn into a devastating flood. Early and clear identification of the problem is your most effective shield. So, to start, I want you to really focus on identifying those relationships in your life that feel like a constant, significant drain on your energy and well-being. Think of that person who always seems to find fault, no matter what, the one who subtly or overtly manipulates situations to get their way. The individual who appears to almost thrive on drama and conflict. That consistent pattern, that's a signal you've just identified a problem person or dynamic. And now it's time to proactively act on it. Because now that you've hopefully identified your problem person or situation, it's time to take the first concrete, empowering step toward protecting yourself. You can start by setting clear and firm boundaries. Now, this might sound almost too simple, perhaps even a bit cliché, but honestly, how many times have you allowed someone to metaphorically walk all over you, consistently draining your energy, leaving you feeling diminished, frustrated, or resentful? That's precisely what happens when personal boundaries are weak, unclear, or altogether non-existent. Think of boundaries as invisible, yet incredibly strong, fences protecting your inner peace, your time, and your emotional well-being. A good fence effectively keeps the bad stuff out, but it still allows the sunshine, the positive connections, to come in. A healthy boundary is typically clear, consistently maintained, and ideally, communicated respectfully yet firmly. For example, "No, I'm afraid I can't take on that extra project right now. My plate is full," is a perfectly valid boundary. "I find I really need some quiet, uninterrupted time after work to decompress," is another. Notice the "I" statements. This is your space, your needs you're defining. Another, perhaps more assertive example could be, "This particular behavior is a red line for me, and I need to be clear that I will leave this job." Or even this relationship, if that line is repeatedly crossed. So, the very first crucial step is to clearly define and set the boundary. But here's where most people unfortunately fail, where their good intentions crumble. They set the boundary, perhaps with a surge of determination, and then they immediately cave the very first time it's tested or challenged. Therefore, your next absolutely essential step must be to consistently enforce that boundary. Upholding a boundary, especially when faced with resistance or manipulation, is truly where the rubber meets the road. Let's say, for instance, you tell your coworker, politely but firmly, that you can't work overtime this week. Then, predictably, they try to guilt trip you, maybe laying it on thick about how the team will suffer. Do you cave under that pressure? Or do you stand firm in your initial, reasonable boundary? The stronger response would be to calmly reiterate, "I understand you're in a bind, and I empathize, but as I mentioned, I've already made plans that I can't change." Then, if appropriate, you might even suggest something else they could do, another potential solution that doesn't involve you compromising your boundary. Stay firm, stay respectful, and if possible, remain solution-oriented. And while the person you're talking to might get upset, might even get angry or accusatory with you, remember this crucial Stoic insight: you don't have to mirror their emotional state. You don't have to escalate with them. This brings us directly to one of the most powerful and liberating concepts in all of Stoicism. As the great Stoic philosopher Epictetus famously said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Let's really break that down. Because it's profound, you likely can't control if your boss is a persistent micromanager. Can you? But you absolutely can control how you choose to react to that micromanaging. See the crucial difference: other people's toxicity, their negativity, their drama, that is not yours to own or internalize. Trying to control someone else's behavior when it's outside your direct sphere of influence is like trying to steer a runaway shopping cart down a hill. You can scream at it, you can shove it desperately, but ultimately, it's going to roll its own unpredictable way, right? So, forget the exhausting and often futile effort of trying to change them. Instead, focus all your energy on your own grip, your own internal controls. You control your reactions. You control your choices. That is where your true, unshakable power lies. This understanding naturally leads to a crucial, introspective question that, unfortunately, most people never pause to ask themselves: is someone else really making you angry? Or are you, on some level, choosing to react with anger? There's a world of difference between those two perspectives. It's incredibly easy, almost reflexive, to blame other people for our feelings. "He made me so mad. She stressed me out," but it's a tempting mental shortcut we should consciously resist. Stoicism directly challenges us to take ownership of our internal responses. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, once wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been." He also wisely stated, "The best revenge is not to be like our enemies." Now, of course, sometimes your physical safety or even your life may genuinely be on the line. And in those extreme circumstances, you'll absolutely have to use stronger, more direct measures of self-protection. But thankfully, most of the time, we're not dealing with that type of dire situation: a disagreement with a friend, a frustrating interaction with a parent, or a conflict with a difficult coworker is typically not the kind of life or death scenario. So, if the situation isn't too serious, if your immediate safety isn't threatened, try practicing strategic detachment. This is all about consciously creating a mental and emotional space between the trigger, someone else's provocative behavior or words, and your own internal reaction. Epictetus taught, you will continue to suffer if you have an emotional reaction to everything that is said to you. So try to not do that. Imagine you have an invisible shield. Each toxic word, each negative comment directed at you, is like an arrow being shot your way. Detachment is that shield, skillfully deflecting the arrow. The arrow still flies, it's still out there. The negativity still exists, but crucially, it doesn't pierce you, it doesn't wound your inner peace. So, if someone is metaphorically shooting an emotional arrow at you, pause and ask yourself, is this my emotion, this anger or frustration I'm feeling? Or am I simply borrowing it, absorbing it, from the person aiming at me? If someone chooses to yell at you, that's their choice, their lack of emotional control. But if you can control your own participation in that situation, perhaps by calmly leaving or not engaging further, that may well be the most effective and empowering solution of all. People choose to get angry. They choose to let their emotions boil over. The Stoics firmly believed that you can, with practice, choose to do better, but emotional detachment alone, while powerful, isn't always enough, especially in the long term. You also need something to guide your responses, the kind of internal North Star to keep you on track and aligned with your best self. You can start by consciously establishing and clarifying your core values. As Seneca once advised, let us train ourselves to desire what is good so that we become accustomed to not knowing how to want anything bad. To get the whole, comprehensive view here, let's briefly review the 4 traditional cardinal Stoic values. They are wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. Wisdom, in this context, is about seeing the whole chessboard of life, not just the immediate, reactive move. It's about using your resources, your time, your energy, your attention in the best possible way, especially for those times and situations when it truly matters. It's about asking, is this particular battle truly worth fighting, or is my energy better spent elsewhere? Then there's justice. Imagine someone is being truly awful, perhaps unfair or unkind. Do they deserve your kindness or fair treatment in return? Stoicism often flips the script on this. Justice, from a Stoic perspective, isn't primarily about them and their deserts. It's fundamentally about you and your character. Can you choose to act justly, with integrity, even when faced with injustice from others? We know other people often can't or won't, but can you hold yourself to that higher standard? That's the challenge. That's the real test of character. Next comes courage. This isn't just about physical bravery. It's the moral courage to set that difficult boundary with a persistent person. It's the courage to walk away from a toxic situation, even if it's uncomfortable or means facing an unknown. It's about cultivating that inner strength, that quiet, unwavering resolve that firmly says, my well-being, my peace of mind, genuinely matters. And finally, there's temperance, or self-control. Think of those moments when you feel that almost unrestricted, overwhelming urge to lash out verbally, to fire back a cutting insult, to indulge in an immediate, reactive emotional outburst. That's often your raw emotions trying to hijack the controls of your rational mind. Temperance is the skilled pilot in this scenario. It's the steady hand on your emotional controls, guiding you to act not out of raw, unthinking instinct, but only after careful thought and consideration. You should learn to prioritize your considered reactions over other people's impulsive actions. And in the same sense, you should prioritize your deeply held values over their often shifting opinions or attempts to provoke you. As Marcus Aurelius astutely observed, We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own. So, a key Stoic practice is to start caring more about your own well-reasoned opinion of yourself and your actions. Speaking of caring for yourself, here's something that most people completely, tragically overlook when they're grappling with difficult or toxic relationships: dedicated self-care. Here's the deal. Consistently battling negativity, whether it's from others or within yourself, is incredibly exhausting. It's like trying to run a marathon uphill, through deep sand, against a headwind. You're constantly spending energy, you're struggling, you're under pressure. So, the critical question is, are you adequately refueling? Are you replenishing those depleted reserves? I'm going to venture a guess that, for many, the answer is probably not, or at least not sufficiently. We often get so caught up in managing the external drama, in defending our boundaries, in trying to navigate the complexities of these difficult interactions, that we forget to take care of the one person we absolutely have the most control over: ourselves. Stoicism is often about being like a resilient oak tree, bending with the winds of adversity but not breaking. But even the mightiest oaks need consistent sunshine and water to thrive. Do you consciously give yourself that kind of essential nourishment? First, learn to recognize when you're under significant stress from these interactions. Acknowledge the toll it's taking, mentally and emotionally. Sometimes, it helps to even say it out loud to yourself or a trusted friend. This is hard. This is draining me. Then, and this is crucial, begin to treat yourself with the same compassion and understanding that you'd likely offer a close friend who was going through the exact same challenging situation. What advice would you give them? What support would you offer? You might say, "Hey, you really need to get some proper rest." Exercise is another fantastic answer, and a profoundly good one. It's not just about the mood-boosting endorphins. Though those are great, it's also about reclaiming your body, your personal space, your time. It's a powerful, non-verbal statement that declares, "I am worth this effort. My well-being matters." Other times, true self-compassion might mean consciously doing less, saying no to additional commitments, even potentially good things, and just being, like giving yourself a much-needed mental and emotional vacation. Because genuine self-care isn't just another burdensome item to tick off your to-do list, it's the absolute foundation upon which everything else, your resilience, your peace, your ability to handle difficulty, is built. So, strive to be kind to others. Yes, but be especially, consistently kind to yourself. It's not selfish, it's essential. But what happens when you've diligently tried all of these Stoic techniques: setting boundaries, managing your reactions, practicing detachment, leaning on your values, prioritizing self-care, and despite your best efforts, nothing seems to fundamentally work with a particular difficult person? Imagine you've tried talking to them calmly and rationally. You've clearly set and attempted to enforce your boundaries. You've consistently paused before responding to their provocations. You've even spent considerable time away from them to gain perspective. And still, there's no tangible improvement in their behavior or the dynamic. If that's the unfortunate case, then it's time to seriously, soberly consider the more definitive step of significantly limiting, or even completely ending, that particular relationship. Can you truly win every argument? Can you magically change every difficult person you encounter? Absolutely not, and it's a recipe for misery to believe you can. Some relationships, sadly, are like trying to fill a leaky bucket that's riddled with holes. No matter how much energy, patience, or goodwill you pour in, it's just never enough. If you find yourself constantly giving, endlessly compromising, and consistently getting little to nothing positive or respectful in return, that's not just a minor issue. That's a massive red flag waving furiously in your face. Ask yourself these hard questions. Is this relationship consistently, significantly draining my precious energy? Is there a clear, repeating pattern of disrespect, manipulation, or emotional abuse that never seems to genuinely change? Despite my best efforts, you don't have to be a martyr. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Sometimes, the wisest, most self-respecting thing you can possibly do is to prioritize your own fundamental well-being and peace of mind. As Seneca profoundly stated, you should associate with people who are likely to improve you, and the unspoken corollary to that is, if they consistently don't, or if they actively diminish you, then perhaps you shouldn't associate with them, or at least, not as closely. If you've genuinely reached this difficult point, you need to be prepared to exit as gracefully as possible, while diligently protecting yourself in the process. This might involve clearly telling this person, "I've genuinely tried to make this work, but for my own well-being, I need to take significant time away from this relationship," or even more definitively, "I've come to the difficult conclusion that, for my own health and peace, I need to end this relationship." Think of it like carefully removing a painful splinter that's been lodged under your skin. The action needs to be swift, clean, and ultimately necessary for healing. The longer that splinter stays embedded, the more it festers, the more it infects the surrounding area. So, if an exit is required, aim to pull it out as cleanly and safely as you can. First, be unequivocally clear in your decision and your communication. After a great deal of thought and consideration, I've realized that I need to end our current relationship dynamic. Simple, direct, unambiguous. Second, and this is key for maintaining your composure and avoiding further enmeshment, keep the focus on your needs and your decision, not on their perceived toxicity or a long list of their faults. It's not, "You're a toxic person and that's why I'm leaving," but rather, "For my own well-being, I need a healthier and more positive environment right now." So you've made your clear, direct statement, focusing on your needs and your decision to step away from a healthier environment. That's a crucial first step, but what comes next is just as important. Thirdly, you must mentally and emotionally prepare for the storm, because, let's be honest, the other person might not take your decision gracefully. They might rage, they might cry, they might resort to guilt trips or manipulation. In this moment, anchor yourself in this stoic truth. Their reaction is almost always about them, their fears, their ego, their inability to accept the situation. It's not a reflection of your worth or the validity of your decision. Fourth, when that storm hits, remember your boundaries and hold them firm. Don't get drawn back into lengthy arguments, justifications, or circular conversations. You've made your decision. You can acknowledge their feelings respectfully. Something like, "I hear that you're upset, and I understand this is difficult," but then you must stand firm in your decision. Your peace is non-negotiable at this point. And fifth, commit to no post-breakup drama. Resist that powerful urge to over-explain yourself, to constantly defend your decision, or, equally tempting, to retaliate if they lash out with accusations. You absolutely have the choice, the right, to say nothing at all in response to outrageous claims or goading insults. Especially when you recognize their whole intention is simply to get a rise out of you, to pull you back into their emotional orbit. Ending a truly toxic relationship is never, ever easy, but a proper, dignified exit protects your future and, in a strange way, can even honor whatever good there might once have been by not letting it devolve into further negativity. Because sometimes, gentlemen, the most virtuous, self-respecting action you can take is simply, quietly, and definitively walking away. Now, I know this all sounds pretty heavy, dealing with such definitive ends. So, let's take a breath and introduce a perspective shift, perhaps in a slightly lighter, more adaptable direction that might actually surprise you. Not every difficult interaction is a worst-case scenario requiring a full exit. In many everyday situations, there is still hope, there is still room for skillful navigation. Your challenging relationship with a coworker, a family member, or an acquaintance may indeed be salvageable, or at least manageable, with the right mindset. It might sound like a contradiction after what we've just discussed, but in moderation, and with the right tools, these difficult situations can actually become our greatest teachers. Think of them as an unexpected pressure test for your evolving Stoic principles. Can you remain calm and centered even when under fire? Can you practice justice and fairness even when they're being blatantly unfair to you? You see, it's relatively easy to be virtuous, patient, and kind when everyone around you is also being nice and agreeable. The real challenge, and therefore the real opportunity for profound personal growth, comes from navigating these tests. Consider reframing these difficult people not as mere annoyances, but as your personal, unscheduled training ground for achieving emotional mastery. If what they do is only mildly irritating, or a predictable pattern of theirs, perhaps part of your practice is learning to accept that specific annoyance with greater equanimity, choosing not to let it disturb your inner peace. Now, I'm certainly not saying you should thank people for being genuinely awful or abusive. That's not the point at all. What I am saying is that you can consciously choose to shift your perspective on the impacts these interactions have on you. Marcus Aurelius was a huge believer in this internal power. He famously wrote in his Meditations, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they can't tell good from evil." He wasn't saying this to be cynical, he was preparing his mind, managing his expectations, so their behavior wouldn't derail his own inner state. Seneca also told this principle eloquently. He said, "To bear trials with a calm mind robs misfortune of its strength and burden." So, if you find yourself in a tough, ongoing situation with someone, take a moment to reflect. How can this situation, this friction, actually make me stronger, more patient, more resilient, and even if their behavior is objectively bad, how can I choose to be better in my response? Understanding why someone is being difficult can also be a helpful tool. Though it must be used with caution, you can employ empathy judiciously, when and where it feels appropriate and safe to do so. But let's be very clear, empathy, in this context, should never be confused with weakness or condoning bad behavior. Understanding why someone's acting like a total jerk isn't the same as saying their behavior is okay or acceptable. Think of it like this: someone recklessly cuts you off in traffic. Your first, raw instinct might be a surge of rage, but then, just maybe, you consider they might be frantically rushing to the hospital for an emergency. Does that newfound understanding excuse their dangerous driving? Absolutely not. But does understanding that potential context perhaps change your immediate emotional reaction? Maybe dial down your personal outrage just a notch. For many, it does. It's about trying to see the flawed human, even within the seemingly toxic behavior. It means attempting to understand the potential source of their chaos, not to excuse it, but so you can better protect yourself from its fallout. In many interpersonal conflicts, a small dose of genuine empathy, "I can see you're really stressed about this," can sometimes diffuse tension. It doesn't always work, of course, but when it does, it can be a surprisingly effective tool. And sometimes, let's be honest, getting immediate justice or winning the argument has to take a back seat to a more practical, long-term goal. For example, you may have a job where you genuinely need the income, and part of that job involves dealing with a consistently difficult customer. This is a prime opportunity to use strategic empathy. You want to stay in control of your own emotions and the interaction. Because your need for that job, for that paycheck, is currently more important than your need for perfect justice in that specific moment. As Epictetus wisely pointed out, any person capable of angering you becomes your master. Choose not to be mastered. And please remember, you absolutely don't have to face these challenging dynamics alone. In fact, trying to handle every difficult person or toxic situation entirely by yourself is often a significant mistake. A recipe for burnout, if someone is genuinely, consistently difficult to be around or to deal with, you might consider involving someone else or seeking support. Even the great Stoic Emperor Marcus Aurelius had trusted advisors. Sometimes, true strength isn't about rugged individualism. It's about knowing when and how to ask for backup. Your trusted friends, supportive family members, people who've perhaps been there themselves, they can be your lifeline. They can act as a crucial sounding board for reality, helping you see if you're overreacting or if your perceptions are spot on. They can be a powerful reminder that you're not crazy. Perhaps the other person is being unreasonable. But if talking to friends and family isn't quite enough, or if the situation is particularly complex or damaging, there is absolutely no shame. In fact, there's immense wisdom in seeking help beyond your immediate circle. If, after all your best efforts, you're still feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or emotionally battered, please consider calling for professional help from someone who deals with these dynamics for a living. Think of a good coach or a skilled therapist as a form of specialized strength training for your emotional resilience. A person like that can provide you with objective insights, practical tools to cope, strategies to set and maintain boundaries, and even help you see your own patterns of reaction within these toxic interactions. That's an incredible source of power, and you should absolutely turn to it if you feel you need it. Your ultimate goal here is to be continually improving, always learning, always growing, using all the healthy resources available to you, whether that's leaning on friends and family, seeking professional guidance, or even just taking a solo camping trip to clear your head and reconnect with yourself. Do whatever you genuinely need to do to navigate this life better, with more peace and more strength. Now, let's talk for a moment about the reality of long-term practice, because mastering these skills, truly internalizing this Stoic mindset, isn't a quick fix. Life is a journey, as they say, and this particular journey of emotional self-mastery is indeed long. Here's the unvarnished truth: mastering Stoicism, or even just effectively managing difficult people in your life, is not a weekend workshop kind of deal. It's a lifelong practice. Think of it more like diligently lifting weights to build physical strength over time, rather than hoping to win the lottery overnight. And here's something else critically important to remember as you embark on or continue this journey. This isn't always easy. There will inevitably be setbacks. There will be days when you react in old ways, days when you feel like you're frustratingly back at square one. That's okay. That's human. The key is to acknowledge it without harsh self-judgment. Learn what you can from the experience, and then consciously, deliberately, keep going, because Stoicism isn't about achieving some mythical state of emotionless perfection. It's about consistent, incremental progress. It's about getting a little bit better each day, a little more resilient, a little more at peace, a little more aligned with your chosen values. We can all strive to be like Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius in our responses. We all have minds, and we can train them. And while we're discussing our own abilities and growth, let's return briefly to that crucial foundation of support: the people you surround yourself with and the environment you inhabit. A genuinely positive, uplifting support system is like your emotional Kevlar. It protects you. It strengthens you. So, take some time to honestly assess everyone you know who truly lifts you up, who consistently drains you or brings you down. Make a conscious effort to, if necessary, cut the cord on those truly toxic relationships, while actively nurturing and preserving the good, healthy ones. If you're in a physical place or environment that is consistently making things worse for your mental state, consider if it's possible to move away from it or change it. Proactively fill your life with people, activities, and surroundings that amplify your best self, that align with your highest values, with the right values guiding you, the right kind of support system around you, and the right people in your corner. You will find it becomes much easier to gently push difficult people and negative influences further away, while naturally pulling good, positive people and experiences closer into your life. If this video, if these stoic insights have helped you feel even a little more empowered to take back control of your life and your peace of mind, I'd be incredibly grateful if you'd leave a comment below, sharing which specific strategy or idea resonated most powerfully with you. Your personal insight, your story, might be exactly what another viewer out there desperately needs to hear today to help them reclaim their own inner throne, their own sense of peace. And please, remember to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more stoic wisdom designed to build lasting mental strength and practical, real-world resilience. As the great Epictetus himself said, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. Use these ancient yet timeless teachings to deal with the difficult people in your life, just as thousands, millions, have successfully done before you. The power to choose your response, to protect your peace, is truly yours. Use it wisely. Use it today.